Welcome, creatures of the night, to the Monster Maniacs podcast. If you get too scared, just keep repeating, it's only a podcast. It's only a podcast.
I heard a scream.
All right, Maniacs. Welcome to the very first episode of the Monster Maniacs podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Deimos Strigoi, and with me is my other co-host, Todd Killer Wolfson.
Todd Killer Wolfson here. What's up, hooligans? Or I should say, maniacs, monster maniacs.
So, let's get into so what do you think? I heard, since we're going to be doing Leprechaun, what do you think? This is considered a franchise.
Yeah. Well, first off, I gotta say, I'm the Leprechaun.
Oh, dude, that makes me think of
Wayne's World.
Wayne's World, exactly.
I can't help, that's something that Wayne's World is like its own thing, but I love that movie. I could watch it all the time, but anytime that scene comes on, I always crack up and I think of automatically, Leprechaun, St. Patty's Day. I'm I have to bring that up no matter what, every St. Patty's Day. Everybody's like, oh yeah, okay, heard that one before, but it's such a classic moment though. He scares the shit out of Garth. Garth is
and for no reason, he's like, stop it, you're freaking me out, man.
You're freaking me out, man.
It's not even, I mean, this is considered a horror comedy.
Yeah.
Which, if I understand, Warwick Davis, that was his idea to put it in, make it more comedic.
I could totally see that because it is basically like Freddy Krueger. I mean, he basically, the Leprechaun, he says the one-liners, the corny one-liners, just like Freddy Krueger.
So bad.
And he's a leprechaun. I mean, it's like the classic trope of, follow the end of the rainbow, find the pot of gold. The leprechaun has all those witty, some not so witty one-liners and things he says.
And the costume, everything is just totally cheesy.
Yeah. Leprechaun, man, he's just like a classic. He's the leprechaun. Me lucky pot of gold.
And it's hard to believe there's been 8 of these movies.
Yeah. What I love about the Leprechaun series is it's already, you already know what you're getting yourself into. It's just like with Nightmare on Elm Street, I could bring that up, but Freddy Krueger, it's just so over the top, so
right.
Putting Leprechaun in space or in the hood, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It's just okay, whatever. Now we can just do whatever. We've opened the floodgates. Let's just put him in the Wild West, it doesn't matter where we put Leprechaun. He's just gonna still, if you take his gold, he's gonna come after you. He's gonna kill you.
Because according to what I'm reading, it says Davis injected humor into his role and reshoots added increased gore to appeal to an older audience. So what was it like before? I mean, there's not a whole lot of gore in this movie to begin with.
Actually, I don't know if not a lot of people know this, but I actually just randomly stumbled upon this. But there's actually another Leprechaun movie out there that's not horror. It's just a fun, family film, with Warwick Davis playing the Leprechaun, but not that Leprechaun. He's playing a good, friendly, Leprechaun for children, for kids, and the only reason I bring that up is because I was trying to find the Leprechaun movie, the original Warwick Davis, and I'm like, wait, I'm playing it as I have it on. I'm like, what the fuck? This isn't Leprechaun, the horror, Leprechaun that he hasn't killed anyone, it's just really dumb. It's nothing against, I was gonna say the Waldens, like the Walden family, but like those like really cheesy '80s like TV
Yeah.
sitcoms. It was like that, and it just I just was like okay, I've been watching this for about 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, this definitely is not Leprechaun movie that I know and love, and I'm just like, why? Why did they make this movie? This is an atrocity. But yeah, so I don't know, like with Warwick Davis, I'm so happy like they made the horror version. I don't know which one came first, but that's don't ever watch the one that I'm talking about. I just was like, oh no, this is like stumbling upon like a nightmare, and it, a different kind of nightmare. It was just like, no, turn this shit off. But yeah, I don't know, like with Warwick Davis, he's like the perfect leprechaun though. I will say, like if you like, I was watching the Returns, the later sequel. Where I know we're talking about the original Leprechaun, but um, the later sequels, like the one that came out, um, I don't even know when it came out, but it came out probably like a couple years ago. It wasn't that old, but it was just Leprechaun Returns, and it wasn't Warwick Davis.
No, it was like a
Um,
wrestler, I believe.
yeah, yeah. I can't think of his name right now, but I actually
Hornswoggle.
really, yeah, yeah. I could like it's not. I'm not saying like I really. I'm not praising this movie or anything. Like it's still a turd, but I do like certain things about it. Like they brought back the original Ozzy from the first one, and spoiler alerts. But and then like the daughter of Jennifer Aniston's character in the first one. So it's kind of like they are. That would be the closest thing to a direct sequel to the original that we could ever get. So that's kind of why I liked it. And the kill scenes were pretty brutal. They were pretty fun. Like so, that's why I like that one a lot. I mean, don't watch Origins either, man. That one is just garbage. I mean, unless you like that kind of garbage, but nah,
It's
not 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 good.
it's it's kind of weird that you brought up the Waltons because according to this, several violent scenes were filmed at Big Sky Ranch, where Little House on the Prairie and the Waltons were shot.
Of course, it makes sense. Maybe
That is
Warwick Davis was like well, he was when they were filming Leprechaun, maybe he ran into like some of the cast of the Waldens or something, and he was like, "Hey, let's make a friendly family Leprechaun movie next." And like they're like, "Yeah, sure, we'll help produce it." And then they made that shitty Leprechaun movie I was talking about earlier. Like,
it says he was inspired by the Lucky Charms commercials,
well, yeah,
which
that was the first thing I was gonna actually say was the Lucky Charm. Even in the original Leprechaun film, like at the end when the kid, I don't even know what the kid's name was, Billy, Bart, I don't know. When he like kills the leprechaun, he says that one liner, "Lucky Charms, bitch," or something, and yeah, but like Lucky Charms, I could see definitely being, like a
he eats Lucky Charms at one point from the kitchen and then spits them out.
yeah. He doesn't like him. He doesn't like it. Yeah.
He sees a leprechaun on the cover and expects it to be old Irish food or something. I have no idea what the point of that was.
You know what else? Not to like, I'm going to do this a lot on this podcast, but
Okay.
to segue a lot. This isn't really too much of a segue, but okay. So do you remember the Burbs with Tom Hanks?
Love
You
that
remember?
movie.
Yeah, classic. You remember the part where he's eating cereal and it's the Gremlins? It's called like something else, like I don't know, Gremos or something. I don't know. They just changed the name of it, but it's definitely a Gremlins character. Like it has either Stripe or Gizmo like on the front of the cereal box. That
No,
just
I
made me.
missed that.
Yeah, yeah. That's a little Easter egg there for everyone. If you've you know watch next time you watch The Burbs, pay attention to the scene where they're in the kitchen and Tom Hanks is eating cereal because it's like a little hats off to the Gremlins and obviously Joe Dante directed both. So it's like I like when you know directors and um you know artists or whoever when they do stuff like that because it's really cool. It's just like, but it just made me think of that when you were saying about Lucky Charms. I kind of went, thought about that. But yeah, as far as like Lucky Charms inspiring, oh, let's now make a slasher with a leprechaun. Yeah, we'll market it towards the kids, just like Freddy Krueger, because that's what they did with Freddy.
Right? Yeah, they turn them into they always turn them into weird horror things from the 80s into kids
Mhm.
cartoons, kids figures, kids toys.
Everything, dude. It was like Kiss. It was like I mean, hey, if it's something that sells, I mean, of course they're gonna market the hell out of it and make as much money, profit as much as they want from it. And I honestly I love all of the Freddy Krueger like things that they put out. Like I still want that talking the doll. Like it's just it's kind of like I don't know if you remember the Pee Wee Herman doll, but like you would pull the string and it
Yeah.
would talk. It would say I used to have that. I had that. Wish I still had that, man. But yeah, Freddy Krueger, the phone, the classic I still see stuff like that at conventions too. You'll see like the classic tongue coming out of the phone.
I mean,
Obviously, like there's so much the
it's
claw,
weird that you
everything.
mentioned Pee-wee, since that kind of brings us back to the movie, since was his name Mark Holton, who plays Ozzy, was the main
What
protagonist in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
you know? What it is that is so weird because I had thought of that mentioning that, and I didn't even think. Well, I already thought of like the comparison. Like I already had thought of that, but I didn't think to bring that up on the podcast. Is what I'm saying. Because
See,
like I was like, wait a minute, yeah, it's the
right,
bully who steals his bike or wants his bike.
because
Um,
that was the
eventually,
moment when I realized this wasn't going to be that serious of a movie. When you have goofy characters like Ozzy, who remember the kids like we're gonna fix his brain.
yeah, yeah. He's like telling him he's like you're not smart. You need to get your brain fixed. And he's like no. He's like I'm smart. I know. I forget what he says. He's just basically putting him down on every chance he can get. He'll say something that'll just put him down. But then at the end, he finally he finally says, I was right that time, and he's like, yeah, you were, you got it. Like, and he killed, um, he had the coin. He ate, I remember he ate the coin and, that's why Leprechaun came after them because
Right.
he was counting all the coins. Like, where's my gold? Where's my shillings? But yeah, that's funny. Cause like, I was thinking, I wish what was the actor? I can't think, I have to look it up, but, I can't even think of the character's name in Pee Wee Herman, but yeah, that's the same guy, Ozzy.
Yeah,
And like I
the
said,
actor's name is Mark Holton.
Mark Holton, yeah, yeah, he was just so great in Pee Wee Herman too. That's what I remembered him from, and I was like rewatching Leprechaun. I was like, this is like a couple years back. I was like, wait a minute, I know he looks familiar, but where do I know this guy from? And I'm like, oh my god, it's Pee Wee Herman.
Okay, so his character's name was Francis Buxton.
Yes, Francis. Yeah, he's like Pee Wee Herman attacks him in the swimming pool and like wrestles him. I like when he gives him the gum, like that gum that just makes his mouth all like black or blue or something. That's another one I could revisit. I just love that movie. Is classic, dude. Pee Wee's Adventure, Tim Burton. We have to do that one. I know that's not technically horror, but it's just that's a fun dark comedy.
Oh, definitely. There's so many great scenes in that movie, so many like classic
I know.
lines.
Mad. I must said something else. Mad Marge or
Oh
Marge
yeah.
Mare.
Sorry, my favorite is when he's looking for his bike in the basement of the Alamo.
Yeah, or the part that kind of got me. I don't not to like sidetrack and talk about Pee Wee Herman, but was the part with the doctors. They were like crazy clowns. Like they reminded me of like twisted like killer clowns, but they were like operating on him, and like for some that part, every time I see that part, like I would always be like just freaked out. It's just it's got that dark Tim Burton, vibe to it. So like it but it was like for it being such a fun, playful, like the TV show was just like, I mean the TV show is genius too, but like it was more just like, okay, this is just a fun variety show, right?
Yeah, it
But
was
then
totally for kids.
yeah, yeah, claymation, awesome, just everything about it's awesome. But then you take the movie, and it's you got the director's Tim Burton, so it's like he just took it and like put it in a blender and just made it even more twisted. But back to Leprechaun, because I don't want to. I will
Right.
sidetrack and talk about Pee Wee Herman like the whole rest of the podcast. Um, yeah. So I mean, as far as Leprechaun goes, like I always thought like he was. I guess I don't know what's the underdog, but he's definitely not okay. Because you got the main slashers like Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Leatherface, Pinhead, you keep going, but like you got these main slashers, right? We always knew, but then you throw in like these goofy ones, like the Leprechaun. And I mean, I think Chucky was always another. I think he's up there too. He belongs up there as like one of the main, slasher icons.
Oh,
But
definitely.
then, yeah, I mean, absolutely, 100%. I'm sorry, even. I'm just saying, as far as Leprechaun goes, though, like where would you put him? Like, would you say he's up there too with the kings of the slashers, if you will?
Well, I mean, seeing as there's 8 movies,
I think
it's got to be an
I would,
audience for it. But
yeah. I I mean, I kind of think so. I think he's definitely up there. I mean, from having that many sequels, and he's even though he's silly. Like, I mean, look at Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger's silly. I mean, he's just another one of those type of slashers that he can joke around and say silly shit and get away with it because he's the leprechaun.
well,
And
I mean, Warwick Davis kind of steals the show anyways, as the
yeah,
Leprechaun.
yeah. That's the thing. Like him with Warwick Davis being so brilliant, and taking on that role and just becoming the leprechaun. I couldn't see like anyone else doing it, and if they did, it just wouldn't be the same. Um, just like with Robert England, with Freddy Krueger, you can have multiple Jasons actors playing Jason, but like certain, I guess it comes down to like what why I think of this is because with Leprechaun, even though he's wearing prosthetic, he's really just that's Warwick
Oh
coming
yeah,
to life.
that's his face.
That's his face coming to life, as the Leprechaun, bringing that to life, and same with Freddy Krueger. So those type of slashers, like that's like a whole nother art form right there of not to go over the place, but I don't know why I'm even thinking of this, but kind of like in acting, like method acting, but I mean it's definitely method acting. It's just in it like you're just becoming this other thing, this other character completely. Whereas like with Jason and Michael, they just kind of, since they don't say anything, they're just kind of using their body,
Right.
their action to like really get you. But this is like a whole nother thing where, okay, we're gonna have fun with this and just that's Leprechaun. He's one of those he's a sick he's a sicko. But it's fun though because you can watch him like kill people like on a pogo stick, or and he could also like mimic or do voice. He could change his voice so he could make it. I don't think he did that in the original. Oh wait a minute, did he? I'm trying
Yes,
to.
he does.
Yeah, he
He
does. Yeah,
mimics the farmer's wife. He
he's
mimics
farmer's
the
wife.
cop. He mimics a little kid. I
Yeah,
I don't even remember this part of the movie, but
for some reason I was thinking of part two, and he does that in part two at the end, or he probably does it a few times, but he mimics um either the guy or the girl tricks them. But I know that's something he definitely, that's another thing that he does a lot, and he can um shapeshift, which I don't really think he shapeshifts that much in the first one, but I know he
No,
can
he
do
does
that.
not.
He does have that power to do that too. And obviously like reappear and like, morph. But trying to
Right. He
as far
can.
as
What do you call it? I don't know if he transports himself because no, he's
transport, I want it be, yeah, I want it be like morphine. I'm thinking more of like that goes back to shape shifting. But yeah, that's what I was thinking, was it's more of a teleportation thing where he can just teleport anywhere.
yeah.
And
Because that kitchen scene when he's fighting all of them, and he's on the fridge, then he's on top of the cabinets, then he's on top like next to the kid. I mean,
yeah, yeah, he like that shit always freaked me out too when he teleports, because like it's just like a ghost, like he could just appear anywhere. And like in the first, the original, he comes out of fridges, he comes out of like what else, like safes, like all kind of shit. Like he'll just pop
it
out of like
almost goes
a
like
cabinet.
cartoonish when he's up in the shelves and the like the
Yeah,
cabinets, and he's in
yep.
one, so they shoot it, and then he shows up another one, and they shoot it, and he shows up in another one.
So so it's like you got some like Looney Tunes like
Right.
vibes going on here. So it's like that's what made it so much fun, is like Leprechaun. It's definitely a horror comedy. Like look at, not to segue again, but look at the Evil Dead franchise. Like Evil Dead 2, like it definitely becomes more of slapstick comedy.
Oh yeah, that does a complete 180.
Yeah, yeah. So like I think even like with for like Leprechaun, like they just said, screw it. We know, you guys know, audience, you guys, you're gonna know what this is right away. We're not gonna try to make this too serious. This is just gonna be a fun, slasher from the get-go. It isn't like this where it's like with Nightmare, where it like progressed into like, because the first Nightmare was, I would say, like watching it growing up, it was pretty scary. Like there was moments where, even though for the low budget, it was a low budget film, it still had, scary, like freaky moments, like the girls getting slashed up, like up on the wall and shit. But like, as far as like Leprechaun goes, though, it was just like, okay, we know what this is. This is the recipe. It's a fun, horror comedy slapstick. It still has the brutal kills, but it's not taking itself too serious. You know what I mean? It's like, this is what it is,
Right.
and I mean that's how it should be. I mean, it's the Leprechaun based off of Lucky Charms. Like, but
Yeah, and
another,
it's also said he was inspired by Critters, which I totally see that as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like all those '80s. That's what I loved about like the '80s, horror films, especially. And I'll say it to the audience and to everyone, like that. That's my favorite. I mean, I love, I respect this, like obviously like the old school, like everything back to like the '50s, '60s, '70s, and but like the '80s just had fun monster creatures, and the effects were just like,
Oh yeah.
practical effects were
I
just
think
perfect.
practical effects came into their own in the 80s for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It was just like the pure like magic of of being creative. You know what I mean? Like people were like, we're at it was just at the height of that. Everyone was, more like, okay, we'd rather make this big like 12-foot monster puppet by hand. And that's, to me, I respect that. Like I think that's what I love, 80s horror, and like even in some of the '90s, like early '90s stuff, still kept it going. But it's just, one of those things where, to me, I always thought that was the best, and like that's what made horror films just just awesome. It's just and those creatures, man. Like I could definitely see like critters being one of my, at the top. That's one of my other favorites. The goalies, and I mean I can keep going, but just it's really cool that you know we had that era where it's like, now it's like they, not all the movies, but a majority of them now, it's like, let's just use CGI, and it's like, okay, that's cool and all, but like if you're gonna use it CGI, like you don't have to overdo it. You know, you can still do that. I think find that like perfect medium of use practical effects, you know, and then if you have to use CGI, make it, I don't want to say minimal, but it doesn't have to be like where it has to be overdone, like because that takes away from like the a lot of the fun, the magic of it. Um, yeah, and rant because I don't know where I was going with that. I just fucking love practical effects, and like movies like we were just talking about, Critters and Leprechaun. That that was the best era, and even like no, we're talking about 80s. I know that Leprechaun was 90, what 93,
93.
93. So I for some reason thought it came out in the 80s, um, but I mean it's still like even the early 90s, like I was saying, they still were making awesome horror films that even though that they still did the practical effects, it was like they were starting to just use CGI, but it wasn't like it is today where it's just like, here, let's just do like a clusterfuck of CGI, and it's like, no, like I don't, I'd rather have these artists come in there and make these awesome props, really take the time out because that just shows like how awesome these films can be, how they can just transform anything into a monster, like either a leprechaun or a critter. And you don't have to like, it's also like using your imagination too, you don't have to like, that's the thing, like people want everything today, like they want to see everything, and it's like sometimes you have to just use your imagination. Like it doesn't have to be like the best, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be the best CGI computer animated thing ever. It could just be an awesome puppet that was built by hand using practical effects.
Right. And then also a lot of times they had to make the scene darker, not because of style, but because the limitations of the puppet or the limitations of the makeup that they were using.
Yeah, they use different lighting. I did also, yeah, lighting is one thing that as like a filmmaker myself, like that's something I have a lot. That's something that I still have to learn. It's lighting is just a whole nother beast, man. Like you could use that to your benefit, or it could stab you in the back too. Um, but if you know how to use the lighting to make like Leprechaun, like I noticed they use like the shadows, and like
Right.
they also use like a lot of those type of lighting tricks that you can make him like look just real creepy, and like that really worked using that stuff. I love that too. That goes back to like the Nosferatu shit, like the what do they call that, the German help me out. I usually know what it's called, but right now I'm having a brain fart.
Right. I know
Um,
I know what you mean. It's more like an avant-garde type of
yeah,
filmmaking.
avant-garde. Yeah, it's definitely got that cool style of like using the shadows and just making it using basically going back to what I was saying with practical effects, making something out of nothing, but you're making it you're making this whatever you're doing, you're just making this out to be something that's really like spooky, really like what is this? Like what am I? That's what makes scary like horror movies scary, is that the unknown. You don't know like what the hell. I mean, you'll see the monster 100 times, but if you can make him menacing enough to the point where you're like, okay, I don't want to go down in the basement. I don't want to check out that. It's just like that's the best. That's the right there is like it's just creating that
Yeah, it's like an atmosphere of
that
fear.
atmosphere. Thank you. Yeah, the atmosphere is like creating that atmosphere and the tension. I think another thing is like that's missing. Like I don't know why I'm going to automatically when I say tension, I go back to Aliens. like Alien
Oh,
and
there's no
Alien.
more tense movie than that. The
Yeah,
darkness, not
yeah.
knowing what's in the shadows.
hmm That's why. That's what like if you can and see that's the thing about what horror and like horror comedy people don't realize like you can combine those two elements. You just have to know how to do them right. Like if you make it too goofy, too stupid, then no one's ever going to take the character, whoever the killer is, serious. I mean, Leprechaun is like one of those things where like you don't really take him serious ever because he's just the goofy leprechaun. But then
Right.
all of a sudden he brutally kills someone, and you're like, oh, whoa, shit. Okay, he means business. You better give him his gold, or he's going to kill you. So it's just like that kind of. It's a perfect combination of the two. Like and that they Warwick Davis and the writers like they found that that recipe and it worked even when it went all the way to space, when he's in outer space. It's just like
Yeah.
still work.
In a normal movie, that's when they would call that they jump the shark. It's when they go into space.
So what were I was just gonna thinking like of all the horror movie that like where they went to outer space, was that the first one? Was Leprechaun the first one to do it, or was it Hellraiser? Because I remember Hellraiser he goes to space and goddamn I don't
Jason
know if
X as well.
Jason X, yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that was 2001. Never mind.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure which one came out before. Um, like I thought Leprechaun in Space came out before Jason X, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Catch Lucky! He's got Lucky Charms! They're magically delicious!
Always have to be Lucky Charms, the crunchy old cereal with a rainbow of marshmallow surprises. Pink hearts, yellow moons, orange stars, green clovers, and blue diamonds. Part of this good nutritious breakfast. Oh, they're coming. I'll make a snowmobile and zoom away.
Frosted Lucky Charms!
They're magically delicious.
All right, welcome back to the episode. Again, we are talking about Leprechaun. And okay, dude, so what would you consider the best kill of this movie?
Oh man. Okay, so I was kind of going back and forth on it, but I still got to go with my gut and go with the pogo stick death because it's just the most creative. Like, it's the most creative death scene that I've seen, and it's just fun. I mean, like, and he's what in the pawn or not the pawn shop, but it's like yeah, it's kind of like a pawn shop. It's like
Yeah.
a place you go to
Yeah,
cash.
they're just looking at the coin trying to sell it.
Yeah, yeah, and like I just like honestly every other kill for me was boring. Like chokes he chokes out the cop, right?
We're not even sure. All you see him, he grabs his face and like I don't even know what he does.
He
Like
snaps
shakes
his
it and
neck.
it starts blood going everywhere, and that's about it.
Well, if you like he's up against the tree and then he just comes up behind him and I think he just breaks his neck. Like he just like because it shows him like grab his head.
Oh,
Like
right. Yes, he does.
so
He
that's
breaks
like
his neck.
that's like and for me like that's like okay whatever like it's and I know they were probably like well what else can we do but I mean there's a million other things they could have done but as far as like the best kill has got for me has got to be the pogo stick one just like I said because it's pogo stick. I mean it's so funny watching the leprechaun jumping on a pogo stick. That alone is like that's the golden ticket for me, man. I'm just like, fuck yeah. And then he starts, stomping him like with the pogo stick and just like I don't know, I just think it's hilarious. That's my favorite kill scene.
I'm gonna have to agree with you and go with the pogo stick as well. Even though I mean it's kind of weird because it looks like he's jumping on his chest, but then there's marks all over the dude's face.
Yeah. I was expecting him to like go right for an eyeball, like he goes right,
Or go through his chest or something.
or yeah, right, yeah. But then, either way, I just every time that scene comes on, I just bust out laughing. It's just a great kill. I can't even like I honestly couldn't even think of that many kills in the movie because there's not that many. But the one that stands out always is the pogo stick one, and I always have that. I don't know if you know the System of a Down song, but the pogo stick
Oh
song.
yes,
Like,
that would pair up nicely.
yeah, that song always comes on in my head too when I see that. So yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't even know where or why there would be a pogo stick in the store to begin with. Like, who's selling a pogo stick?
I mean, that's the only okay. If you know it's a pawn shop, I could kind of see it maybe, but like, yeah, it's just such a random thing. They probably were just looking around like the shop and were like, what can we use? You know, somebody suggested a pogo stick.
Because I mean, if
But
you look at it, it looks like it's something from like the 50s or 60s. It looks super old.
could just be like something like an antique like pogo stick that and they just were like, hey, let's use this. I think it's genius. I mean, because it's like something. It reminds me of like I'm trying to kind of like Saw like Jigsaw how he's like on his little bicycle.
Oh,
You know,
right. Yeah, that reminded me of the little tricycle when he comes out of the barn riding the trike.
yeah. It's like it's got that like just that silliness, to it. Like you're just like, how can I take this serious? But then he starts, like I said, he starts just like totally, jumping on him and stabbing him to death with it. And it's just it's great. I love it. I mean, he doesn't do anything else that's like even close to that as fun of a kill. I mean, I'm trying to think of the other kills. Like it's mostly they don't even like show how he kills. Well, Dan O'Grady is the guy who finds the pot of gold earlier in the like at the beginning of the film, and
Right.
like they don't even like show how he killed him. He's just
No,
hanging from the ceiling.
right. He's hanging out of the elevator and doesn't explain how the leprechaun put him up there. And then what happens? He's just like, ugh, and dies.
I know, I know. I just was always wondering, like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. That's definitely a plot hole. They should have maybe that's a deleted scene or something that they just didn't do. But as far as it goes, like I'd say that's the worst kill for me. That or like one of the cops getting like when he gets his neck. I think if that's what Leprechaun kills him by breaking his neck. I mean, like because even though there's not that many kills, because like I counted them, I think there's only four. Wait, no, there's got to be more.
Well, there's O'Grady's wife,
Grady's
O'Grady
wife,
himself,
yeah,
the pawn shop guy.
pawn shop guy, the cop, the
But
cop.
by the way, the pawn shop is John Volstad, and his character's name is Joe. Even though pretty sure in the movie it just says like store owner.
Trying to, oh, man, there's got to be. He kills another cop, doesn't he?
Or I think it's the same one, or is it? It's the same one that's in the car. Is that this guy that runs after him?
Yeah,
Because that has to be. That's also if you have like one of the cheesiest scenes when he's driving in that little go kart or whatever that's supposed to be,
that's
and the
the other
cop
one.
the cop
Yeah,
pulls him over.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of my other favorite moments of the movie because he's like in that little go kart and it
Right.
looks like those little cars that like you would get as a little kid and you'd be driving around in, but like
You
he's just
pedal it.
like yeah, yeah, and like yeah, I thought for sure like he was gonna kill the cop there, but he doesn't kill the cop there. He kills him in the woods.
And then for whatever reason drags his body back to the car, places him in the
Yeah,
passenger seat,
yeah, I didn't get that.
and then imitates his voice.
Well, I mean, I get that. That was cool. Um, I just was like, I don't know that. I just felt like that whole scene was kind of like, um, I don't know. I don't think it was necessary. I mean, it was like a cat and mouse chase, like, and he finally got him, and he just breaks his neck. I just thought it was kind of, it just wasn't, it was lackluster. It could have been a better kill, could have been more creative. Um, but as far
Yeah,
as
you
like the
go from a
kills,
pogo stick to that.
I know that's what I mean. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like I mean, if it's the Leprechaun, he has all these powers. Like, well, I know I know he didn't have his full magic right away, but I'm saying like even then he still had some, there's tricks up his sleeve he could, do something. But I mean, that's the only thing I could think of is that he didn't have his full magic, his full power, so
Right.
that's why he
'Cause he didn't
couldn't
have
do
his
certain
gold.
things. Yeah, he didn't have his gold. So that's the only thing I could think of is that why they were like, okay, then in that kind of makes sense. That I think about it. That's why he can't. Why he was on that pogo stick and why he, just does whatever he can to kill the cop. But yeah, I think it's only 4 or 5. I want to say there's another cop that he killed, but I just don't remember. Um,
I mean, I'm looking at the cast, and all they have is Deputy Trippett. That's the only other cop besides the sheriff.
oh man, yeah, it was. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier. Like it's just not there. It's not a big cast. There's not a lot of people, so they're probably just were like, all right, who else can we kill off? Who's left? Who's well, we didn't cast another cop number 2 or whatever. Like they just have that one cop,
Well, usually
and
it's a teenager that gets killed, and all 4 of the main cast lives.
yeah, yeah. This isn't like a standard slasher. I mean it is a slasher, but it doesn't follow. I mean, well, okay, they got the final girl. You got the final girl, Jennifer Aniston, but
Right.
they don't kill off everyone though. Everyone is still alive. Like everyone, all of the main people. Like so it's like other than the side characters like the pawn shop guy and the cop, there's really nobody else. Well,
Everyone
Dana
just gets
Grady and his
injured.
wife. Yeah.
Her dad gets injured, or the guy that's helping paint gets injured,
Hmm.
and then Ozzy gets injured. But they all survive.
Yeah. So it's definitely one of those like one of those that's very rare that happens in slashers, especially like the first slasher. I mean the first, installment of a slasher. It's usually like you see Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, everyone's just getting killed off left and right. Or like with this one, it was just kind of more about let's just do like 1 or 2 really awesome, kill scenes, and then like they're probably just were like, okay, let's see if this even works. They probably didn't think they were even going to make sequels, and then they made all
Right.
these
So you
sequels.
think if you don't know that, you would try to up the body
Right,
count as high as possible.
right, yeah. I don't know. It's like it with Leprechaun also going against like all these other like you got Chucky and all these other big slashers. Yeah, you would think like he would do a lot more damage and would like really like show his abilities as a leprechaun to set himself apart from everyone. But really, they didn't really up the ante until the sequels.
And really in 93, what other sequels? I mean, they pretty much had the game to themselves at that point. The 80s slashers had kind of faded out.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like they were trying to do a revival of it, and you had like Scream, and in the '90s you had all these
Right.
I Know What You Did Last Summer and all those type of trying to basically have a revival of the slashers and like, but it seems like as far as like doing like a monster thrown in like something different like you had Freddy Krueger where it was a demon, a burn victim, like another type of monster, the leprechaun, having having like these magical powers. You didn't see that a whole lot either, so it was kind of cool that they were like, okay, let's do something different now. Let's bring in another. Where you don't see that really at all, you know, nowadays. I mean, the last like, come to think of it, the last like, if you're talking like a monster, like a demon or a monster, some type of killer, like Jeepers Creepers, like the Creeper, I
Right.
can't
Yeah,
even.
that's true.
Yeah, I honestly I can't even think of like many other, you know, other than like the classic like, okay, put this mask on, because there's like so many of those. There's a million of those type of slashers where they'll just be I mean, I'm not talking about like the main. You got like Jason, Michael Myers, and all that. We all know that, but I mean, like, there's also all these other obscure ones that didn't really take off because it's like, it's been done, But when you see something like come along like the Leprechaun, that's original and it's its own thing. That's why I appreciate that series, and I consider it like one of the main. He's part of that, whatever you want to call it, like the icons of slashers, the kings of slashers. But he's
Right.
up. He's definitely up there. He belongs up there, which is lucky pot of good.
Yeah, he's definitely. It's almost like I don't know, it's not as serious. It's more not quite for kids because I mean they pushed an R rating.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to show your kids that, but him pogo sticking on killing somebody, but that might be the way to desensitize, you know, the kids. Here, just watch this, and they're like, "Oh, look at that cute little leprechaun." Then all of a sudden, he's killing somebody on a pogo stick. Like, it's just like we're watching Looney Tunes, just with some blood and guts.
Right.
Well, happy St. Patty's Day.
Oh, definitely. Happy St. Patrick's Day, ghouls.
Get your better find your shamrock, or you're doomed. Apparently, because like that's what. Spoiler alert: that's what they needed to kill the leprechaun, or at least what, trap him in a well until the next sequel.
Yeah. Now, okay, when he came out of that well, kind of melting and gory, did he not look
Oh
like
yeah,
Stripe from Gremlins?
I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, that was probably, since we mentioned kills, that actually might, even though that's the leprechaun getting killed, that might actually be my favorite kill, is leprechaun getting killed, because like that whole badass like special effects makeup that they did, like that whole gooey, yeah, it reminded me of definitely Gremlins, definitely getting a lot of Gremlins vibe. Same way, yeah, Stripe gets killed at the end. Like it's like he jumps out at the end, and it's like you see just like a skeletal, form of Leprechaun, but he's still talking. He's still trying to like,
Right. His
my
face was
god, my
all
god.
melted off and turned into a puddle of goo.
It's like the goo. It's like the ooze. Two other things I thought of: The Secret of the Ooze, and from Ninja Turtles, and Troll too.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Whenever when all that green ooze is, when they get killed off, all that green ooze is like everywhere. So like, yeah, man, I don't know. I'd have to take it back. Like Pogo Stick Death is still pretty awesome, but that whole death scene, at least at the end, the first Leprechaun movie, like um, that was probably the best, like as far as the practical effects, makeup stuff goes, out of the whole movie. Just because it was just so cool watching that, him just like oozing, and just blah, I forget what he says. He says something like, "Me lucky good, I want me good."
And I think he says that he'll be back or something.
Something stupid. Yeah, like, I'll be back. I'll be back for me lucky good, for me lucky charms.
I mean, that almost felt like that was put on after they released it, and they're like, "And you know what? Let's make a sequel. Let's go back and re-edit the movie and add that part in."
Yeah, which I'm glad they. If that was the case, like, can you imagine the movie if they didn't end it like that, and they didn't have that awesome, practical effects moment where he just oozes, all that oozes coming up, green oozes everywhere, and he's just like, bah. Like that just made it. I was just like, hell yeah.
Okay, so let's see. That was Gabe. Let's see. I'm from Bartalos, I
I
believe.
was just thinking like who did that special mix, but that's funny you brought him up because I was just watching Spookies, and he was one of the original makeup artists in that movie, and he's done
Oh,
his
okay.
own. Yeah,
I
he's
didn't
done
know
his
that.
own movie too.
Really?
He's done some really crazy messed up movies. One of them is called Saint Bernard, with Warwick Davis. How about that? We could bring it back, just full circle here, because actually I'm looking at it right now. Gabe Bartelos, yeah, he made this really crazy movie about a composer who's just this guy's just warped out of his mind. He finds like he finds the head, decapitated head of a Saint Bernard dog, and he just carries it with him everywhere. But Warwick Davis is also in this movie. Highly recommend that movie if you guys haven't seen it. Severin, it's released under Severin, but I didn't even put that together either. How about that? Warwick Davis. Yeah, he's in that. And Gabe Bortellis, fucking awesome makeup special FX makeup artist.
Oh yeah, I mean he makes this whole movie.
Hell yeah.
All right, you want to wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was a great first episode of Monster Maniacs.
So I hope you all enjoyed it, maniacs and ghouls out there. And stay tuned for the next episode where we will be reviewing. You want to tell them?
Sure. Maniac Cop.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Can't wait. Stay cool, ghouls.
Yep. Keep it spooky. Keep watching horror movies.